I'm talking today to Karen Reb Rudel. Good morning, Karen. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good on this gray Paris morning. Not
Well,
so lovely outside.
it's gray in Limerick as well. So if there's any consolation, and we just survived the storm here as well. So we're good for now. No, but we're not here talking about weather. We're talking about your work, Karen, in Paris. But originally you're from Pennsylvania, I understand. So there's one particular thing I want to talk about to you later on because I was looking at your blog and a name came up there of a certain actor. So
Ah.
we might talk about him in a minute. So yeah, just in a brief kind of synopsis, tell us who Karen is and what
Well,
site she
I'm
espouses.
right. Well, we just launched the new website yesterday, Site Seekers Paris.
Yeah,
But I've been giving tours for 20 years now, but I'm from Pennsylvania, correct? Johnstown. It's near Pittsburgh. And I came to Europe for a 2-month backpacking trip 26 years ago. I just got stuck here
yeah.
in a good way, in a reggae band. And after the car broke down, we were on tour for the 5 years. And I'm a flute player and a singer and a percussionist, and also went to school for theater. And our car broke down and we moved to Paris. And I was teaching English and babysitting like many expats, and my parents came to visit, and I showed them around Montmartre, the artist colony of Paris. And we got to the top, and it's the best view of the city on land, the highest point. And I said, "Look, Mommy, there's the Eiffel Tower." And she looked at me and said, "Oh, you'd make a fabulous tour guide." So always listen to your mother. I tell the story every day.
Exactly. I mean, do what your parents tell you, and you'll get far. So that's your inspiration for tours. But you do a lot more than the Montmartre. You also do
Yes.
a Jewish tour, kind of linking it into to the Holocaust and the history of what happened during World War II in Paris. So
Absolutely. Yes, the tours morphed from many different tours that we have on offer about all over Paris, all different niche tours. And then I built a Jewish tour because when I got pregnant, I had a Jewish friend who asked me if I had a Jewish tour because she knew I was Jewish. And I said no, and she said, "Well, you need one." So it was somebody else who implanted that in my brain. And I've been doing that tour 4 to 5 times per week until the pandemic. And then it went virtual, made the big pivot. And I've given my Jewish virtual program to over 60,000, mostly Jewish people in North America.
okay, that's quite a number. And
Yeah.
as I mentioned earlier, that there was one. I was looking at your blog, and there's one name that popped up. A little known actor in Europe called Michael Douglas. He's done a few movies, I think. So how did that come about?
How did that happen? So, all of my guides, we are storytellers, actors, teachers. We're trying to make it a fun experience through edutainment. We educate you with entertainment. So, one of my guides, who was British, actually ended up being Michael Douglas's personal assistant when he was here in Paris, portraying Ben Franklin for his 8-part Apple TV series called Franklin. And he had been here many, many, many years ago, but he didn't have a big knowledge of Paris. And his two kids of Catherine Zeta-Jones came to visit him. And he said to James, what do I do with my kids? And he said, I think I have the perfect girl for you. So it started out, he was supposed to do a Montmartre tour and then have a break and go to lunch and then do a Père Lachaise tour. Well, in the end, he invited me to join them for lunch. So I got to spend about 8 hours with him and his two kids. And it
That's
was absolutely, I'm a tour guide to the star.
Yeah, I mean that's something you wouldn't expect in Europe, maybe in Hollywood or but not so much.
Sure.
But that's a great experience though. I mean, he's let's face it, he's one of the biggest stars in the
Yeah.
world, like he has been for decades. So yeah,
Yeah.
and he's an interesting character. I was always a big fan of his father, Kirk Douglas.
Yes.
because there's a great story about him and the this movie. What's it called? Not Gladiator. I always get
Romancing the Stone?
no, Kirk Douglas's movie. I forget
Oh, oh,
the big Roman, bit like
oh,
Gladiator.
Not Ben-Hur. Oh, oh, I wish somebody would listen
Yeah,
right now. Threw that in.
it will get it doesn't matter. But with that movie, I'll I'll come to me later. There was this the whole banning of writers in Hollywood at the time, and he said, well, there was one particular writer he wanted for this movie. I said, if I can't have him, I'm not going to do the movie.
Ah,
And that broke up that whole McCarthy era blocking of screenwriters. And that, so I always had a great admiration for him then. So, but yeah, but let's go back to your current tours in Paris. And the one thing I'm always kind of interested in when it comes to tourism in Paris, because Paris, not only Paris, but France is known for they speak to mind and sometimes they protest a bit. So I know it was a while there where you had the yellow vest. Did that
yes,
impact on your tours?
absolutely.
Oh no.
Absolutely. I started giving this Jewish tour in 2010 when my son was born. And between the terrorism that happened with the Charlie Hebdo and the
Yeah,
kosher supermarket horrible situation, and then the yellow vests, the strikes, anytime things like that happen, Americans get terrified to travel. So tourism in Paris goes like this.
yeah,
You know, even when there's a garbage strike, people start freaking out thinking they can't do anything. But the French are very militant in their concept of if you're going to protest, we're going to know where it is and when it is.
yeah,
So anytime things like that happen, believe it or not, they're organized protests. Of course, then they get a little crazy when they start smashing windows and doing that. But the fear that we don't have here that they do have in America is, we don't have the same gun laws
yeah,
here. So I'm never really worried about that. I'm more worried about the metro not working, when it comes to that, certain areas that we can't get to. But the media and propaganda always makes it a lot worse than it actually is when it comes to the yellow vest, which was for retirement, things like that.
yeah. No, but that's good to actually. The name of the movie just came to me, Spartacus, by the way.
Ah, Spartacus.
Yeah,
I said Ben-Hur. You're like,
yeah. No, but
bah.
the similar. So yeah, and on your Jewish tours, Jewish Holocaust tours. Uh, I'm sure you would have had Holocaust survivors on them as well, and also I suppose children and grandchildren of them. And you
Yeah.
probably went to show them the Velodrome and things like that. So,
Well, the velodrome has been burnt down since the 1950s, so nobody
uh,
goes there. The only thing that's there now is a commemorative park,
yeah, yeah,
which they've redone, and there's some statues. And the French, the amnesia has worn off since the late 1990s, which
yeah,
took a long time. And the French did save three-quarters of their Jews. So, every day I have people on the tour in their, 80s, 90s, my parents' generation who think that the French threw everybody under the bus, where that is not actually true. You can't sugarcoat what the French did to their immigrants and a lot of the French people, of course. And that was the Vichy government.
yeah,
But there was a huge movement in the resistance from 1942 on, um, where over 350,000 people that we know of were resistance fighters. There's plenty that were fighting on their own, meaning helping people with escape routes, hiding them in their basement, hiding them in their farm. A lot of people on the Wall of Righteous, as they have at Yad Vashem, the Gentiles. Not everybody got to be on the wall or was looking for recognition, but did what
mm,
they could to save Jews. Um, but the people I've had on my tours have seen the names of the people who helped their families on the wall. And that, of course, could be a very emotional time when people are looking for the year that that story came out, that they were found as a hidden child and documents were found, but not until the 2000s,
Yeah,
so a lot of people hid a lot of things.
yeah, but even with the rights among the nation, that's still it's still ongoing. There's still new people being added at the time. Yeah, so yeah, but I think that when you talk about amnesia, that's a bit of a European thing as well. A lot of countries have forgotten what they actually have done themselves. I mean, everyone blames Germany and Austria, but we have to look a bit close to our own as well. Like even in the US, but when I look at my own, well, I live in Ireland now, but I'm from the Netherlands, so 75% of the Dutch Jews were perished during the Holocaust. Now,
Right. We're the
there's
contraire of Paris, France, where 75% were saved,
yeah,
70% were saved,
yeah.
so
But with the Dutch, there's a bit of a reason for that as well, because the Dutch are always very known to be very good in keeping books, having the civil service, and there's always one of the best um, funded and also very efficient, which can be good for some things, but during a war that can be disastrous. And that's part of what happened in the Netherlands, because the Nazis went in, they went to the civil service, so that all the cards there, they knew exactly who was Jewish, who was not.
exactly.
So it was kind of given it to them. So I mean, there's still no excuse, no whatsoever for that. But the Dutch should have done a bit more. But yeah, so what's the most interesting tour or thing you have done, or do you get any strange requests on the tours?
Well, I mean, when you're giving a tour and somebody tells you a story about their family, a grandfather hidden by the French resistance, meaning he had joined the resistance movement and it was a non-Jewish cell, so to speak. And somebody else found out that they had a Jew in their group and they said, well, you guys are going to have to kill this guy or somebody else is going to kill him. So they said, you know what? We'll take care of it. And they told the guy, we're going to shoot. You're going to fall. We're not going to shoot you, but we're going to make it sound like we're shooting you. And we're going to bury you alive and we're going to come back to get you. Imagine what this guy is thinking. And they
Yeah,
actually came back to get him 3 hours later. And his granddaughter was on my tour telling people this. So it is intriguing, these stories that happen that people are sharing that have never been documented. There
yeah,
is so many stories that people are still coming out with that are shocking to people.
yeah. I've been writing about history and for mostly Holocaust for a good bit of 8 years now, and when I started off, I thought I might have enough material for a year,
Well,
but I can go on for decades, I think, and I still won't have everything. And I still get new stories sent to me as well. I've never heard of. So, yeah, there's millions and millions and millions of stories. So, but that's what makes it so interesting, I suppose, as well, or intriguing. That was even when you look at it yesterday was the International Remembrance Day of
yeah,
I mean when the Auschwitz was liberated 80 years ago, but even with that, like there's still so many new things coming up from that, from even from the liberators, and there's still people alive today. 80 years, but may sound like a long time, but it really isn't.
yeah,
Especially given we live in an era where people can live up to 100 and beyond. So there's still people alive today, and they might be alive for another few years
yeah.
before
I mean, the
they
people that
pass
were
on.
babies, those are the people now, they probably don't remember what happened to them. And that's one of the things that's very intriguing.
Yeah,
Not only do they not remember, but if they were 3 or 4 or 5, they may remember a little bit, but block it out. And a lot of people, when they moved to America after the Holocaust or moved wherever, they kind of took these vows of silence that they didn't want to burden their children and their grandchildren with these stories. But now you have people thinking that we're making this up, when I have people that I grew up with in the 1970s in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, that had the numbers on their wrist,
Yeah.
So the people that think that Jews are making all this up is just it's more horrific than what you're seeing happen. Everything today is just abominable, absolutely horrific.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is that what people also forget, it wasn't only Jews who were murdered. There's well,
Yep.
500,000 Roma people were murdered, and I had a discussion with someone I know this week was is I won't say anti-Israel, but he was very pro the other side, so to speak, and he is part of the LGBT community. I said, don't forget that during World War II, the Nazis
Oh,
also went after you and these people you praise so much now. You don't have any value to them now. So it's how you look at things. You have to put things in perspective sometimes. And that's often forgotten. People think, well, but I often hear, well, leave history be. So no, you shouldn't leave history be. History should be revived day by day. That's how we learn things. So, but
we
that's
learn from
I
the
think that's why
past.
it's great to have people like you doing tours. But it's not only history; it's also food. I understand,
Of
and other
course,
things.
yes. We're covering, Paris is such a plethora of history, you know, Paris has been here 2,500 years.
Yeah,
So you have medieval history, you have all the French kings, all the republics, the revolution, the Napoleons, the redesigning of the most beautiful city in the world, the world's fairs, the art, the existentialism, the educational system, the medicine, the math, everything that the French have enveloped and given to the world. The education system here is absolutely amazing. In America, so many kids are taking karate and theater and circus, where here the kids do a sport or an instrument, but then it's all just education. All my friends in America are schlepping their kids from every activity every day, where the kids in school here 8:30 to 5, they get home, either they go do their sport or they do their homework or both, and then starts again the next day. They have Wednesday afternoons off and the weekends, but they don't overextend their children like they do in the United States. um Also, socialism, so we don't have to worry about saving $250,000 to send our kids to university,
mm,
which is just absurd. And I think that's, for me, why there's still the third largest Jewish community in the world here today, because it's this big intellectualism and art and music and theater, so many things that Jewish people excel at, also do the French. So
yeah,
for me, there is so much to talk about.
yeah. Exactly. But yeah, in Paris, of course. I mean, even though I've never been there, funny enough. I mean, and I literally lived about 4 hours away from it, like a car
Yeah,
car journey. Train probably even shorter. And but when you live near something, you'll say, "Oh, next week I'll
I'll
go
get
there
there
some stage,"
someday.
and
Exactly.
then
It's not going anywhere.
yeah, and then you move away and think, "Oh, actually, it's not so close as it is now." But meanwhile, it's still a short flight away, so I will get there eventually, and I'm pretty sure I will join you on one of your tours because yeah, I'm interested in history, and I like walking, so I mean that's a bonus of two for
Exactly. And
price of
that's
one.
earlier you had mentioned food. Of course, I give different food tours, different neighborhoods, different dishes, different stories, the anecdotes that the French have about food. People come here and they're like, "Oh, I must have a beef bourguignon." But do they ever stop to think about why would they be cooking wine, using wine to cook? And people
Yeah,
are like, "Well, because they're French and they must use wine everywhere." I say, "No, it's because the meat was disgusting. They needed to disinfect it." Oh, so it's the stories like that when you marry a French person, when you integrate into their culture and ways of being, that you learn these things to share with clients.
see, I learned something new there myself now because I didn't realize that that's why they use the wine to cook. Now I know they don't use wine for everything, but I
No, but
did.
coq au vin, French onion
Yeah,
soup. That was a poor man's. That was the poor man blue collar worker
Yeah,
soup. The bottom of the barrel onions, dry bread, and whatever cheese they had left. But 9 out of 10 clients, first thing, where can I get the best French onion soup? I'm
yeah,
like, it's crazy.
yeah. I mean, and that is a popular dish here as well. It's actually one of my wife's favorite dishes. We had a beautiful bistro in my hometown in the Netherlands, and they did a fantastic French onion soup, and it was served actually in a loaf of bread, and they had the
Of
soup
course.
inside. It was lovely. So yeah, no. Again, it was great talking to you, and keep up the good work as well. And if you ever come across any famous actors again, like give us a shout. We might have a talk to you again about that. So
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
yeah,
This was
yeah.
this was
Thanks
great.
for that, and again, all the best with the tour, and hopefully your website will get quite a bit of visitors as well. So
Yes.
it was
Yes.
a new website since yesterday. You said, is it?
Yeah, we just launched it yesterday. It's called sightseekersparis.com. It used to be Sightseekers Delight. Now it's Sightseekers Paris. This way, we're opening up to go to Sightseekers Italy, Sightseekers England, and hoping to be, Starbucks of tour companies and be
Oh,
everywhere.
that's a good idea. So yeah, good on you. Now,
Well,
Karen,
thank you
thanks for
very
this,
much,
and
Chris.
I'm sure we'll talk again at some stage.
Okay, thank you very much.